It started off like any other Saturday, and maybe that's what stings the most, how ordinary it all seemed right before everything changed. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. We were knee-deep in a product launch at work, and weekends had basically become extra weekdays. But around 4 p.m., the client's CEO called the whole thing off for strategic realignment. That was it. Just like that, my weekend was free. I packed up, didn't even bother to text Rachel. Figured I'd surprise her instead. On the way home, I swung by Grounded, her favorite indie coffee shop. Ordered her go-to oat milk cold brew with vanilla syrup, extra ice. A small thing, but I knew it would make her smile. I pulled into the driveway of our house, a place we'd built together, a modest 2-story in a quiet suburb where the biggest drama used to be missed trash pickups or a neighbor's barking dog. I unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and the first thing that hit me was the silence. Rachel wasn't home yet, which tracked. She had mentioned some kind of networking mixer for her firm, a get-together for creatives at one of those rooftop bars downtown. Said it was important for making connections. I kicked off my shoes and started toward the bedroom to change. That's when I saw it. The shirt. It was draped lazily over the stair banister like someone had come in and tossed it there without a second thought. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I assumed it was one of mine. But as I got closer, I paused. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't mine. I picked it up. It was a designer label I couldn't pronounce, stitched neatly on the collar in silver thread. The fabric was smooth, high-end, something you wouldn't find on sale at a department store. It was also too large for me, at least a size up. But what really stopped me was the scent. Cologne. Not mine. Not even close to mine. This wasn't just a shirt someone dropped off by accident. It had been worn recently, and the scent still clung to it like a fingerprint. Something sharp and masculine with notes of cedarwood and something spicier underneath. I held it for a moment, not really knowing why, then slowly folded it and laid it on the hall table. My stomach turned. Something didn't feel right. I told myself to calm down, to not jump to conclusions. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the thing is, I've known Rachel for 6 years, married for 3. She's not the kind of person who brings home random things. She's neat, organized, and maybe just a little obsessive when it comes to her house. If she brought home a guy's shirt, there had to be a reason. Right? I was still standing there, coffee in one hand, shirt folded on the table, when the front door opened behind me. Rachel stepped inside like she was walking onto a stage. She was dressed in a sleek black jumpsuit I'd never seen before, form-fitting, elegant, and paired with heels she usually reserved for weddings or anniversaries. Her makeup was perfect. Her earrings sparkled. She looked stunning. She blinked in surprise when she saw me. But only for a second. "Ethan, you're home early," she said, voice rising slightly, but not in panic, just surprise, well practiced. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Project got delayed." I held up her coffee. "Thought I'd bring you this before your thing tonight." Her eyes lit up, a smile spreading across her face. "Ah, you're the best," she said, stepping forward to take it. She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, just a quick peck, and her perfume overwhelmed the cologne scent still lingering in my nostrils. Like she was trying to cover something up. That's when she saw the shirt. "Oh," she said, in that tone people use when they've already crafted a story in their heads. "That's Marcus's. He's one of our junior designers. He spilled marinara all over himself at lunch and didn't have time to run home, so I offered to take it and wash it. Team spirit, you know?" She chuckled lightly and waved her hand as if that explained everything. I nodded slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Nice shirt," I said. "Pretty fancy for marinara." She laughed again, too brightly. "Right? Guy dresses like he's always on a runway." She bent down to slip off her heels, still smiling. "Anyway, I've got about 20 minutes before I have to head out. Mind if I change real quick?" "No, go ahead," I said, stepping aside. She disappeared up the stairs. I stood there for a while, staring at the space she had just vacated. My brain was doing that annoying thing where it tried to be both rational and suspicious at the same time. On one hand, the story added up barely. She worked in a creative field, had plenty of coworkers, and was known for going out of her way to help people. On the other hand, there was something in her voice. A tone, sweetened and rehearsed. Rachel wasn't flustered. She wasn't scrambling. She was smooth. And that's what worried me. It wasn't the shirt. It was how easily she explained it. How easily she lied. That's what stuck with me the rest of the evening. She left 20 minutes later, kissing me on the cheek again before heading out, saying she'd text when she got there. I watched her pull away from the driveway in her silver crossover, the brake lights disappearing into the dusk. I didn't go anywhere. I just sat on the couch, stared at the TV, didn't even turn it on. The shirt was still on the hallway table, perfectly folded now, as if I was afraid to wrinkle someone else's lie. The smell lingered. Cedar, spice, and the faintest trace of something I couldn't name but would come to know far too well. I couldn't explain it then, but in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something foundational. A kind of quiet understanding settled in my chest. Like an alarm going off behind soundproof glass, muffled, distant, but unmistakably there. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The next morning started the same way it always did, at least from the outside looking in. Rachel was already downstairs when I got up, standing at the stove with her hair tied up in a bun, humming softly as she made eggs. The scent of butter and toast filled the kitchen, and for a moment, everything looked normal. But it felt like watching a play from backstage, like I could see the trapdoors and curtain strings behind the performance. "Morning," she said cheerfully without turning around. "Hey," I replied, grabbing a mug and pouring myself some coffee. I watched her from the corner of my eye. The way she moved, the rhythm of her morning routine, it was all so practiced, so perfectly timed. Too perfect. I sat down at the table and sipped the coffee, but it tasted off. Or maybe it was just me. That shirt. That smell. It wouldn't leave me alone. I told myself to let it go. People spill things. People help coworkers. People wear cologne. But it wasn't just the shirt, it was how smoothly she'd lied. And the more I thought about it, the more it felt like that moment had opened some hidden door in my brain, one that led to rooms I hadn't dared enter before. Rooms full of memories. Questions. Moments I had dismissed at the time, now taking on new weight. Like how she'd started staying out late more and more often over the past few months. Sometimes it was work dinners. Other times it was meetings with contractors for the office remodel she was overseeing. At first, I believed her. But then it became routine, too routine. She started saying things like, "Don't wait up," with a casual smile. And I stopped waiting up. Or how she started stepping into other rooms to take phone calls. Always important. Always loud in here. At first, I didn't think much of it. But it kept happening. At home. At dinner. Even during our anniversary weekend back in March. I remember we were at a vineyard up north, this little cabin we'd rented before. I'd gone out on the deck to pour us more wine, and when I came back, she was in the bedroom, whispering into her phone, back turned to the door. When she saw me, she jumped. Said it was her boss. Said it was about budget approvals. I had believed her then. But now? Now all I could see was how fast she ended the call. How she never mentioned it again. And then there were the texts. Not the ones she sent me, those had become sparse and functional. More like logistics than affection. But I remembered a specific moment about a month ago. We were watching TV and she got a message. Her phone lit up just for a second. I hadn't meant to look, but the screen was facing me. The preview said, "Vance, work that room you love is open Thursday. Let me know." I didn't ask. I should have. Instead, I pretended I didn't see it. I tucked it away in the back of my mind, telling myself maybe it was for a shoot or an office event or some new studio rental for the firm. But now I was remembering that she smiled when she saw it, softly in a way that wasn't for me. Vance. I tried to recall if she'd ever mentioned him before. Maybe in passing? She'd talked about people at work before, designers, managers, clients, but I couldn't remember a Vance. And now I wondered if that was intentional. I stirred my coffee, my appetite gone. "Everything okay?" Rachel asked, setting a plate of eggs in front of me. I nodded. "Yeah. Just tired." She leaned in and kissed my temple. "It's Sunday. You should take a nap later." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did. Maybe she was counting on me pretending not to. That afternoon, I watched her pack up her gear for a location shoot with her team. Cameras, tripods, lighting kits, all of it neatly organized into cases. She looked like she was going on a real job. And maybe she was. But something gnawed at me as she zipped her duffel shut and slung it over her shoulder. "You working with Marcus again?" I asked casually. She paused. "Nah. Different group this time. Just a few juniors and Vance." There it was again. "Vance." I nodded. "Cool." No reaction. No flicker. She turned back to double-check her SD cards, humming under her breath like she always did when she was focused. I watched her pull out of the driveway again, and this time I didn't just sit on the couch. I walked upstairs, into the office, and sat down at my computer. I opened the shared photo album we'd kept since our honeymoon, the one we both used to upload memories from trips, birthdays, holidays, and random moments. I hadn't looked at it in months. There were new photos. Some from work events, rooftop dinners, art gallery mixers, studio walkthroughs. All stylish, well-lit, carefully posed. None of them had me in them. Not one. I clicked through them slowly. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining things. But I wasn't. I'd been at some of these events. I remembered the outfits, the locations. But I wasn't in a single *T. As if she'd gone out of her way to crop me out. As if I'd already been erased. And then I found one from 2 weeks ago. A group *T at a launch party, everyone smiling in front of a step and repeat banner. Rachel was in the center, hand on the shoulder of a man I didn't recognize. Tall, stylish, confident smile. I hovered over his face. Vance? I checked the file name. It had been uploaded by Rachel. The caption just said, "Great night with great people, dizzy #teamwork." I stared at the man next to her, the arm slung casually around her waist. And I knew. I didn't have facts. I didn't have proof. But I had instinct. And it was screaming. I closed the laptop slowly and sat back in the chair, the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. The thing about doubt is that it doesn't hit you all at once. It seeps in. It unravels you thread by thread, memory by memory, until you're left holding the empty fabric of what you thought was your life. By the time Rachel came home that evening, cheerful and radiant from her shoot, I had already begged *N to fold into myself. To watch her the way you might study a stranger. Carefully, quietly, without revealing your thoughts. She kissed me hello. I smiled. And the voice inside me said, "Don't trust her." She told me she was going to Santa Barbara for a 3-day creative retreat. That was the exact phrase, creative retreat. It rolled off her tongue like a sales pitch, light, breezy, confident. She even printed the itinerary and left it on the kitchen island like it was some kind of brochure. I didn't ask to see it. She offered it anyway. I watched her pack the night before she left. I leaned against the doorway of our bedroom while she carefully folded each outfit into her suitcase, color-coded, labeled, the kind of preparation you don't do when you're really expecting to work. Silk blouses, that black sundress she only wears when she wants attention, and heels way too impractical for conference rooms. "What do you guys actually do at these retreats?" I asked, not accusing, just conversational. She smiled without looking up. "Workshops. Brainstorms. Wine and cheese stuff. It's all about creative flow. You know how it is." I nodded like I understood. But I didn't. Not really. Not until the next morning. She left around 10 a.m. blowing a kiss from the car window as she backed out of the driveway. I waved, held my smile, and then the moment her car turned the corner and disappeared, I walked back inside and opened her printed itinerary. At the top, Santa Barbara Design Collective, Spring Inspiration Retreat. Hotel listed. Room block info. Event schedule. I sat down, phone in hand, and stared at the hotel name. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the shirt. Maybe it was the texts. Or maybe it was the quiet voice inside me that had grown louder each day since that moment on the stairs. The voice that said, "You know what this is." So I called. I told the front desk clerk I was Rachel's husband and needed to confirm the reservation. There was a pause, just a beat, but it was enough. "Yes, sir," the woman said cheerfully. "We have her listed under Rachel Kennedy. She's sharing a suite with a Mr. Vance Palmer. Would you like their check-in time?" "No," I said too quickly. "That's all I needed. Thank you." I hung up and stared at the phone for a long time. Vance Palmer. The name set like a weight in my chest. I leaned back in the chair, staring up at the ceiling fan again. It spun lazily, the same rhythm as before. Everything in the room looked exactly the same. But something had changed. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I didn't rage or cry or smash anything. That wasn't me. That never had been me. Instead, I opened a drawer in my desk and pulled out an old legal pad. The one I used to sketch business ideas back when I thought I'd start a firm of my own. And I made a list. The title I wrote at the top, Exit Plan. It was the first real thing I'd written in weeks. I started simple, logistics mostly. Separate bank account. A backup files from shared cloud storage. Collect passwords. Secure personal documents. Lease options for studio apartments. I worked in silence, methodically, like I was planning a trip. In a way, I was just not the kind you pack for. That evening, I made dinner like usual, pasta with garlic bread and a side salad. I poured myself a glass of wine, then poured hers too, just to keep the habit alive. Her absence didn't feel strange. If anything, it felt familiar. She'd been gone for months in spirit. This was just geography catching up. I spent the next 2 days quietly dismantling my connection to her life. I transferred money. I contacted a realtor. I deleted the favorites album on my phone. The one that used to be filled with pictures of us in Mexico, hiking in Sedona, dancing in the kitchen. They were all gone with a few taps. The memories still existed, of course, but only in my head now. And that's where they'd stay. By the time the third day rolled around, I had already applied for a small studio in a neighborhood across town. Nothing fancy, just a start. She came back on Tuesday evening. Cheerful, glowing, her tan barely noticeable, but her mood was radiant, like someone coming home from vacation. How was it? I asked, keeping my tone light. Productive, she said, setting down her bags. Honestly, I needed it. It was so nice to unplug for a while. I nodded. Glad to hear it. She wrapped her arms around me from behind as I stood at the stove reheating leftovers. I missed you. I didn't flinch. I didn't tense. I just smiled. I missed you too, I said. And in a strange way, that wasn't a lie. I had missed the version of her that used to be real. But she didn't exist anymore. She had been replaced by someone who could lie through her teeth while looking me in the eye. Over dinner, she told me about the retreat, the wine tastings, the group critiques, the inspirational hikes. She even mentioned Vance casually, like he was just another coworker. No hesitation, no falter in her voice. I think he's moving to New York soon, she said. Oh yeah, I asked, sipping my drink. Yeah, big opportunity. He's talented. I'm sure he is. She smiled at me the way she used to when things were good. And I played along. I didn't mention the hotel call. I didn't mention the room. I didn't mention her name being linked with his on a sweet confirmation. Because now I wasn't interested in hearing her explanation. I was only interested in leaving cleanly, quietly, without warning. That night, after she fell asleep curled up beside me, I stared at the ceiling in the dark and whispered to myself, this is the last time I'll sleep in this bed. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger. What I felt was sharper. Clarity. And that's the most dangerous kind of peace, when you've finally accepted the truth, and you know exactly what needs to happen next. The morning after Rachel returned from Santa Barbara, I made coffee the same way I always did. Grind the beans fresh, pour over method, 2 sugars in hers. We sat in the kitchen, both pretending this was still normal. She was scrolling through her phone, probably editing photos for Instagram or responding to client emails with hearts and exclamation points. Her new favorite emoji was the sparkle one. I started to hate it. Thinking we should do a family dinner soon, I said, not looking up from my own screen. Your sister's been asking. Rachel perked up, eyes lighting with something that almost looked like relief. That sounds nice, she said. Let's do it this weekend? I nodded. Yeah, I'll text them. She smiled and went back to her phone, her expression soft, as if the ice between us had finally started to thaw. It hadn't, but I let her believe it had. That was step 1. Let her feel safe again. Over the next few days, I became someone else. Not a stranger exactly, but a quieter version of myself. More agreeable, more flexible, always available. I let her take the lead in conversations, laughed at her jokes again, even let her steal fries off my plate without comment. She leaned into it fast. I could tell she thought we were on the mend, like our marriage had simply hit a rough patch and was now steering back to safer waters. But I wasn't steering us back. I was preparing to jump ship. Every day, I chipped away at the shared life we'd built. Quietly, strategically. First was the money. I opened a new account at a different bank. One that didn't have our names printed side by side on every statement. I transferred small amounts, just enough to go unnoticed. Bonuses, reimbursements, and a little extra from an old freelance client I'd done work for. Slowly, steadily, I stacked a safety net. Something that was mine alone. Then came the logistics. I updated my mailing address on the sly, credit cards, medical records, online orders. I rented a small P.O. box under the pretense of business correspondence and used that address to apply for a short-term lease on a studio across town. It wasn't much. A converted loft above a bookstore with exposed brick and creaky floors. But it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, mine. Rachel never noticed. She was too wrapped up in her new project, redesigning an interior for a boutique spa downtown. There were collaborative calls that ran late into the night and text messages that made her smirk just slightly before locking her phone and setting it face down. I stopped reacting. Stopped asking. She assumed that meant I trusted her again. I didn't. I just didn't care to catch her anymore. When I wasn't at the studio setting up utilities and moving essentials, I started calling people we knew individually, privately. Friends. Colleagues. Even her cousin Molly. Casual catch-ups on the surface, but there was always a reason. I wanted them to hear my voice. I wanted to control the version of me that would exist when the fallout came. Plant seeds. Lay groundwork. Let people remember I was the one who smiled and said, "We're doing fine." And all the while, I erased myself from the places she might look. Deleted old love notes from my phone. Removed my tagged photos on social media. Transferred files off our shared drive. Packed away sentimental objects one by one, the framed photo of us at Crater Lake, the pair of mugs that said his and hers, the tiny keychain she gave me when I started my old job. Into a box. Out of sight. The house stayed the same. That was important. The illusion had to stay intact. We cooked together. We watched TV. We went grocery shopping and argued about almond milk like nothing was wrong. She never noticed that my side of the closet was thinning. That my keys were missing from the bowl by the door. That the books on my nightstand were now sitting in my car. The dinner with her family went exactly as planned. Her sister and brother-in-law came over, bringing wine and their 2 loud kids. Rachel wore a linen dress, the one with tiny buttons down the front. She looked beautiful, radiant even, and I watched her move around the kitchen like a woman who believed her life was intact again. She poured drinks. She told stories. She laughed with her whole chest. I smiled too, and no one questioned anything. But beneath the table, I checked my phone for the lease confirmation. The last box had arrived that morning. My toothbrush, my laptop, a few clothes, and the last of my old vinyl records. It was done. I was officially moved in. The night after the dinner, Rachel curled up against me in bed. She was wearing my old college sweatshirt. Said it smelled like me. I looked at the ceiling, her breath warm against my shoulder, and thought, "You have no idea." That weekend, she said she was heading out for a photo scouting trip. Some mountain cabin 2 hours north. She kissed me goodbye at the front door and winked. "I'll bring back something pretty," she said. I said, "Can't wait." As soon as the door closed, I went upstairs and grabbed the last few things I'd stashed away in the back of the closet, my guitar, a stack of notebooks, and a silver watch my dad gave me years ago. I walked out without a trace. Didn't leave a note. Didn't change the locks. Didn't post some cryptic message about new beginnings online. Just disappeared. 3 hours later, I was sitting on the windowsill of my new apartment watching the light fade across the bookstore awning below. The air smelled like ink and fresh bread from the bakery down the block. It was quiet. I hadn't realized how much I miss quiet. I slept deeply that night. For the first time in months. No glances over at a glowing phone screen. No pretending I didn't hear whispered calls in the hallway. No lying beside someone who had already left me long before I ever walked out. When I woke the next morning, I turned on my coffee maker, opened the blinds, and let the sun pour into the room. It was the first morning I didn't think about what she was doing. Where she was. Who she was with. It didn't matter anymore. I was gone. And she hadn't even noticed. It was a Thursday when I finally decided to end it. Not with words, not with a fight, not even with a goodbye. Just evidence. Cold. Plain. Unavoidable. The silence had gone on long enough. I spent that morning gathering everything I needed. The hotel confirmation from Santa Barbara. A printout of the suite reservation with both their names in bold. Screenshot *TS of bank statements that showed high-end dinners, boutique hotel charges, rideshares to unfamiliar neighborhoods, all logged under our joint account. And finally, a message forwarded by a mutual friend who had seen enough, a photo snapped at a rooftop bar where Rachel and Vance were kissing. Not a whisper of hesitation in either of their bodies. Her hand was on his chest. His hand was on her waist. Their eyes were closed. Comfortable. Familiar. It wasn't blurry. It wasn't up for interpretation. It was undeniable. I didn't react when I saw the photo. That version of me, the one who might have shattered a glass or yelled into a pillow, was long gone. Now there was only one goal left, closure. Not for her. For me. I printed everything and placed it into a plain white envelope. No note. No threats. No dramatic monologue. Just the truth. And then I walked through the house one last time. The living room still smelled faintly of her favorite candles, sandalwood and rose. The throw pillows were arranged the way she liked. The photo frames still held smiles from holidays and anniversaries that now felt like memories from a life I had only dreamed. I didn't take anything else. I didn't leave anything broken. I left the envelope on the coffee table, right in the center stage, like a performer's spotlight waiting to be flipped on. That night, while she was still out, undoubtedly working late or on a call, I took a final look around and closed the door behind me. I didn't lock it. It wasn't mine anymore. I got a text from her the next morning. "Rachel, hey, did you take your charger? Can't find it." I didn't respond. An hour later, another one. "Rachel, wait, where are you? Ethan?" Still nothing from me. By noon, she had moved on to calling. Over and over. I watched my screen light up like a beacon. Her name. Then her name again. Then Rachel Cell. Then unknown. I let them ring out. Eventually, the messages changed. "Rachel, I don't understand. Please talk to me. Rachel, what is this? Why are there hotel receipts? Ethan, please don't do this. Rachel, it's not what it looks like." That one actually made me laugh. I imagined her sitting on the couch, holding the envelope in her lap, rereading the papers for the 5th time, trying to find some loophole, some escape hatch. There wasn't one. The final message came around 5 p.m. "Rachel, please just tell me this isn't over." I turned off my phone. Later that evening, mutual friends started reaching out. Some cautiously. Some pretending they didn't know what was going on. One text stood out. From Jordan, a guy we'd known since college. "Jordan, I don't know what happened, but she's blowing up everyone's phone. Says you just disappeared. You good?" I replied. "Me, I'm good. She knows why." He didn't reply. Didn't need to. That weekend, Rachel went full social media. Photos of us, old ones, started showing up on her feed. Captioned with vague emotional quotes like, "Love always finds its way back. Sometimes we lose ourselves to remember what really matters." There was even a black and white selfie of us from a New Year's party years ago with the caption, "Not ready to let go." I scrolled past it without stopping. She was already too late. I didn't answer her calls, didn't respond to DMs, didn't even log into the account we used to run together for travel photos. It was like watching someone yell into a canyon, hoping the echo would sound like forgiveness. But there was no echo. Only silence. And that silence was louder than anything I could have said. By Monday, she tried another route. My mom called. "Ethan," she said gently. "Rachel's reached out. She said you left. That she doesn't know why." I sighed. She knows exactly why. Mom was quiet for a moment. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Better than I've been in months." She paused. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not yet." "Okay. Just know I'm proud of you. Whatever happened. I know you didn't take this lightly." That meant more than she knew. I didn't want to turn this into a public battle. I wasn't interested in being the guy who airs his dirty laundry on Facebook or shows up to dinner parties with a chip on his shoulder and a story to prove he was right. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. I wanted peace. And slowly, I was getting it. Rachel didn't stop trying. For days after, she reached out to people we both knew. Claimed I had run away. That I was having a crisis. That I was emotionally unavailable. That I wouldn't let her explain. But the thing about lies is that they need consistency. And Rachel? She was slipping. One of her coworkers, who had always been polite to me, reached out privately on LinkedIn of all places. Her message, "I don't want to get involved, but I thought you should know Vance told people at the office they've been seeing each other for months. He didn't know she was married. He looked gutted when he found out. Said he ended it." I thanked her, then deleted the message. I didn't need more proof. What I needed was forward motion. I went to the house one last time. Not to see her. She wasn't there. I had called in advance, had her agree through her sister to be out for the afternoon. I didn't want a scene. I just wanted to pick up my final mail. There was a box waiting near the door with my name written in marker. She had packed it neatly. Probably hoping I'd take that as a gesture of goodwill. I opened it before leaving. Inside, my old hoodie. A handful of birthday cards. A book I lent her years ago that she never read. At the bottom, I found something I hadn't expected, a letter. Her handwriting. Folded carefully. One page. I read it in my car. She didn't deny anything. Didn't ask for another chance. Just said she was sorry. That she didn't know why she did what she did. That she never thought I'd actually walk away. That she thought I'd yell, break things, maybe cheat back, something she could frame as mutual destruction. But I didn't give her that. I gave her silence. And it turns out silence cuts cleaner than screaming ever could.